They say war changes people, but no one ever warns you that the real battles might be waiting for you back home. While I was stationed in Thailand serving my country, dodging monsoons and sleeping with one eye open, my husband decided to hit me with the most cowardly ambush of all. I didn't get a phone call, no warning, just an email, cold and calculated. Subject line: Let's be adults about this, attached divorce papers, and a trail of a betrayal that went deeper than I could have ever imagined. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Heavenly Revenge, where real stories meet cold justice and karma doesn't knock, it kicks the door down. If you love true stories of betrayal, payback, and poetic endings, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single one. Back to my story. While I was out there thinking we were still a team, my so-called husband emptied our bank accounts, moved his new girlfriend into my home, and thought I wouldn't find out. What he didn't know is that I may be soft-spoken, but I don't go down without a fight. And this time I wasn't coming back for closure. I was coming back with a plan. You never forget where you were when your whole world collapses. For me, it was a scorching Tuesday afternoon in Thailand, somewhere between briefing logistics and prepping humanitarian gear. My boots were covered in red dust, my hair tied back in a no-nonsense bun, and my head still buzzing from the morning patrol. I just settled into the shade with a bottle of lukewarm water when I checked my military email. Subject line: Let's be adults about this, the sender, my husband Tom Briggs. At first I thought it was a joke. We'd argued before, sure, but nothing explosive. And even if things had been cold between us lately, I never imagined he'd drop a bomb like this, especially not while I was deployed 8,000 miles away serving my country. I opened the email. 3 sentences. Just 3 cold-blooded lines that gutted 13 years of marriage. I've filed for divorce. I've already emptied our joint accounts. Angela has moved into the house. That was it. No explanations, no apologies, no warning. Just a hit-and-run divorce from the man who used to bring me breakfast in bed every Sunday. The man who once cried happy tears at our wedding. Now he couldn't even be bothered to sign off with a "take care." I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. My hands didn't shake, my lips didn't tremble. Instead, it was as if my whole body had gone quiet, numb, like I'd slipped into a sniper's mindset, calm, detached, but laser focused. And I read the email again, then again, and once more just to make sure I hadn't missed anything human in those words. But no, it was all clinical, like reading a financial transaction or a service cancellation. I closed the laptop, stood up, walked to the open air showers, and let the cold water crash over me like a reset button. When I got back to my cot, I dried my hands, reopened the laptop, clicked reply, and typed a single word: understood. No begging, no confrontation, no why or how could you, just one word. Because that's all I had left to say. Sergeant Morales, my bunkmate, looked up from her crossword and raised an eyebrow. You good, Captain? I nodded. Yeah, just stuff back home. She gave a knowing look and dropped it. That's the thing about military people. We don't prob when someone says they're fine. We wait. We respect since we understand that sometimes wounds are still bleeding under the armor. But let me be clear, I wasn't fine. I was on fire inside. Tom thought I'd break, thought I'd crumble in the jungle heat, thought I'd come crawling back or unravel from the distance. What he didn't know, what he couldn't understand, is that I was trained for war. I survived ambushes, I negotiated peace under pressure, and I damn sure knew how to hold the line. I wasn't going to fight him with tears or empty threats. I was going to do it with precision, with strategy, with facts, because I might not start battles, but I finished them. Looking back, the signs were always there. I just didn't want to see them. The distance didn't start with the email. No, it began 6 months before my deployment in the quiet spaces between us. At first, it was subtle. Tom stopped asking about my day. When I brought up the possibility of another overseas tour, he didn't argue or protest, he just shrugged. Then came the sudden gym membership, the new cologne, the business dinners that ran too late and ended with his phone mysteriously on airplane mode. He used to leave his phone on the kitchen counter while we cooked together. Now it was practically glued to his hand. But I didn't confront him. That's never been my style. The Army taught me a lot over the years: how to assess threats, how to stay composed under fire, how to survive chaos. But the most valuable lesson: trust your gut. and my gut told me something was coming. So I prepared, quietly, precisely. While Tom was out one weekend visiting a friend, I gathered every document that mattered: our marriage certificate, the deed to the house, my military pension files, even my grandmother's wedding ring, and locked them away in a secure storage unit across town, just in case. I opened a personal checking account under my maiden name at a small credit union Tom had never heard of. Every paycheck from then on, I routed a small percentage there. Not enough for him to notice, but enough to make sure I wouldn't be starting from scratch if he ever pulled the plug. I also checked the VA loan documents. The mortgage was in my name, thank God. I'd qualified for the benefits through years of service, and that house was legally mine, even if I'd added his name to the deed. For fairness after our wedding. Stupid, but fixable. Tom, of course, was none the wiser. He thought he was subtle smiling at Tex under the dinner table, showering as soon as he got home like he was scrubbing off guilt. But I saw through him. I just didn't say a word, because you don't yell in a war zone, you strategize. You don't. You don't react. You prepare. The night before I left for Thailand, he hugged me at the airport. "Stay safe, okay?" He said, his voice light, as if I were heading to a weekend retreat, not a combat zone. His eyes were dry, no tears, no hint of fear or longing. It felt like a handshake at the end of a business deal, not a goodbye between husband and wife. And still, some part of me hoped I was wrong, that I was overthinking it, that maybe, just maybe, we were just in a rut and he'd come around, that we'd still have a chance. I see now that hope was my only blind spot. He thought I'd leave everything in his hands, that I'd be too distracted by duty, by distance, by the demands of deployment. But what he didn't know was that even when I'm 8,000 miles away, I'm always watching, always ready. That email didn't surprise me. It just confirmed what I already knew. Tom may have made his move first, but I'd already fortified my position. This wasn't panic. It was a controlled detonation, and I was the one holding the trigger. 2 weeks after the divorce email, I was eating lunch alone at the field tent in Udon Thani when my phone buzzed. It was a push notification from the bank we used to share. Out of habit, I checked it. $88, $460.50 withdrawn. I blinked. That couldn't be right. I opened the app. The joint account we'd spent over a decade building birthdays, deployments, tax refunds, all our milestones was down to $23.19. I didn't scream, didn't even flinch. I just set down my fork, took a breath, and let the silence settle in. He drained everything. My stomach clenched, not from the loss, but from the sheer audacity. I was dodging monsoons and briefing operations while Tom was back home cleaning me out like a burglar in broad daylight. And still, I hadn't seen the worst of it. That night, while the rest of my team called home to check on loved ones, I slipped away to the comm center and logged into our home security system. A little something Tom probably assumed I'd forgotten about. The feed loaded slowly, pixel by pixel, thanks to jungle speed Wi-Fi. But when the image finally sharpened, it hit me like a punch to the chest. There she was, Angela, wearing my sweatshirt, drinking my coffee, walking my dog. And sitting on the sofa, I spent 3 months saving up for her after my first tour. I watched her laugh, flipping through a magazine, completely at home in my house. She was using the mug my niece painted for me when I made captain. She was curling up in the blanket my late grandmother knitted before she passed. Tom wasn't just moving on, he was replacing me, repurposing me like I'd never existed. Something inside me clicked. A slow, deliberate turn from grief to calculation. This wasn't just betrayal, this was premeditated. So I did what I do best: I made a plan. I pulled out my field notebook and started writing, not feelings, not regrets, but an action list. Call Lisa, my old friend from officer candidate school, now a military lawyer based in D.C. Access full bank records. Find out when the transfers started and where the money went. Review the VA loan. Check for any refinance activity I hadn't approved. Secure my military pension, double-check account protections. Prepare for emergency leave. If this escalates, I'd need boots on the ground mine. By morning, I had already received a reply from Lisa: "I'm in, but be ready. If this goes where I think it's going, you're not just looking at a bad divorce, you're looking at fraud, forgery, and..." maybe even conspiracy. I didn't flinch. I was already there. That email from Tom may have started the fire, but now I was walking straight into the blaze with purpose. Because you can take my house, you can drain my bank account, hell, you can even try to erase me from the life we built. But you can't take away my training, you can't take away my discipline, and you sure as hell can't take away my fight. This wasn't just personal anymore, it was a mission. And unlike Tom, I finished what I start. By the time I landed back on U.S. soil, I wasn't the same woman who left. I didn't tell anyone I was home. No welcome parties, no dramatic doorstep confrontations. I checked into a motel under a different name and met Lisa, my lawyer friend, at a greasy diner just outside Spokane. She slid a folder across the table like she was handing me classified intel. Everything we talked about, she said, and then some. Inside were bank statements, legal documents, and a refinance contract I'd never signed yet. Somehow my name was printed at the bottom in a sloppy attempt to copy my signature. But here's the thing about military signatures. We sign with intent, precision, muscle memory. What was in front of me, a forgery so lazy it made my blood boil. Middle initial wrong, angle of the E off, stroke order all over the place. And the kicker, Angela was listed as co-borrower. I looked up at Lisa. You're telling me he forged my signature? Took out $330,000 in equity from my house and added a known felon as a co-signer? She nodded. Angela has 2 DUIs and a fraud charge from 2019. That alone makes the refinance suspect. But here's where it gets more twisted. She handed me another slip of paper. Tom transferred $14,600 to a guy named Rick Spencer. He's a real estate agent who specializes in quick below market value home sales, mostly cash, mostly quiet. Wait, I frowned. He's trying to sell the house. Lisa nodded again. And guess what? Spencer has closed 3 other deals with your husband in the last 2 years, well below appraised value. Every time the woman involved had just gotten divorced. My jaw clenched. So this wasn't a one-time betrayal. This was a pattern, a setup, a hit job on military spouses. Exactly, Lisa said. We're not just dealing with a cheating husband. We're looking at financial conspiracy, forgery, and possibly racketeering. My mind raced, every tactical instinct kicking in like a countdown before deployment. I wasn't just fighting for what was mine anymore. I was staring at a criminal operation that preyed on the loyalty and distance of military personnel, people like me. And Tom, he wasn't just some fool caught in a bad midlife crisis. He was a cogs in a dirty machine, and Angela, his willing accomplice. That night, I logged back into the security cameras. Sure enough, Tom was in the kitchen laughing with Rick Spencer, the two of them casually planning renovations. Rick mentioned, let's get it listed by the end of the week. I've got a buyer already, cash, no inspection. I hit record on my phone because this was evidence. I didn't need to scream or smash windows. I just needed to build my file one damning detail at a time. The next morning, I walked into the bank that approved the refinance. Showed them my real ID, my real signature, and the forged papers. The manager turned white. I'll need to report this immediately. I've already filed a police report, I said. But you should note this is bigger than just identity theft. His hands trembled as he took copies of my documents. I walked out knowing the first domino had fallen. Tom thought he was smarter than me. Thought deployment made me vulnerable. He forgot I'm trained to respond under pressure. And now I wasn't defending myself, I was launching a counteroffensive. There's a special kind of power in silence when the enemy doesn't know you're already 10 steps ahead. I hadn't spoken to Tom since that cold 3-sentence email. No calls, no replies, not even a passive-aggressive text. He thought I was still somewhere in Thailand, licking my wounds, maybe crying into my pillow after being blindsided. But I was already in Spokane, watching, listening, planning. Lisa and I set up base from a small rental apartment near the edge of town. It wasn't much, but it gave us line of sight on the house that was still legally mine. Every day we logged into the cloud feed from the security cameras I'd had the foresight to install 2 years ago. Indoor, outdoor, audio-enabled, they didn't know. On a Thursday morning, while Tom was probably sipping coffee in my kitchen, I opened the app and saw him on the front porch talking to someone new. A man in a blazer with a clipboard and a car logo that said, Spencer Realty Group. Lisa leaned over my shoulder. That's our guy. Rick Spencer. I hit record. Through the speaker, I heard them talking like old pals. Spencer was pointing at the roof, nodding toward the lawn, checking light fixtures, classic listing routine. Then came the words that made my skin crawl. We'll list it at 470, settle for 420. I've already got a buyer lined up cash, no inspection needed. Perfect, Tom said. Let's get it closed fast. I just want this behind me. Oh, you will, I thought, but not in the way you're hoping. Lisa was already dialing her contact at the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. We had everything: the forged refinance docs, bank transfers to Rick's security footage, and now audio proof of conspiracy to defraud. The fact that Rick and Tom were trying to offload the property at a reduced price for quick cash, that sealed it. Don't confront him, Lisa warned. Not yet. The more rope he gives himself, the tighter the noose. We didn't have to wait long. That weekend, Angela left town, probably visiting family, or more likely fleeing what she could sense was unraveling. Tom stayed behind, and Spencer returned 2 days later with a professional photographer to stage the house. All while I sat across the street in an unmarked car, watching the circus play out. I forwarded the live footage to Agent Patel at the FBI with a single subject line: happening now. 30 minutes later, 2 black Suburbans pulled up to the curb. Agents exited swiftly, professional and stone-faced. Within moments, the front door swung open. Spencer tried to run, bad move. He didn't make it past the driveway. Tom stood there, stunned hands half raised, as 2 agents cuffed him right on the porch. He was still wearing the Seahawks sweatshirt I'd bought him 3 Christmases ago. It was the first time I'd seen his face in nearly 6 months. He looked older, smaller, confused, and utterly defeated. That night, Agent Patel called. We got it all, she said. Conspiracy, wire fraud, attempted sale under false pretenses. Your footage gave us the final nail. I exhaled slowly, letting it all sink in. Not with glee, not with revenge lust, but with clarity. Justice wasn't always loud. Sometimes it looked like a hidden camera. Sometimes it sounded like a casual conversation between 2 con men. And sometimes it moved silently, just like me. Tom had bet everything on the assumption that I'd be too far, too emotional, too distracted to fight back. He forgot who I am. I don't scream, I strategize, I don't panic, I prepare. And when I strike, it's swift, clean, and by the book. This mission wasn't about love anymore, it was about dignity. And I just won mine back with interest. The courtroom wasn't what I expected. There were no dramatic outbursts, no last-minute confessions, no "I object" moments straight from a crime drama, just fluorescent lights, a judge with tired eyes, and a U.S. attorney who spoke with surgical calm as he laid out the charges: wire fraud, conspiracy, forgery, attempted real estate fraud involving VA-backed property. Tom didn't say a word during his arraignment. He sat there in an ill-fitting suit, hands folded and eyes down. The same hands that had once held mine during wedding vows now trembled as the court read out the charges that could cost him up to 20 years. Rick Spencer looked worse, sweaty, jittery, whispering to his lawyer like a cornered animal. He'd been caught in possession of falsified title documents and a burner phone containing messages tying him to at least 5 other quick sale scams. This wasn't his first rodeo, but it would be his last. The FBI moved fast after the arrests. Their Financial Crimes Division had already been circling Rick's name for months, and our footage finally gave them the pattern they needed to hit hard. Spencer folded within 48 hours, took a plea deal, and handed over records that tied him to a multi-state operation preying on military families. Then came Angela. She tried to act innocent at first, claimed she had no idea that Tom had told her I'd abandoned him emotionally, and that I was funneling money out of the marriage. But the paper trail said otherwise. She was listed on the forged refinance as a co-signer. She'd signed off on staged documents. She'd been spending the stolen funds. She was in deep, and she knew it. The turning point came when the FBI showed her the footage of her and Tom casually discussing final offers for the house, her face drained of color. I wasn't there in person, but Lisa told me her voice cracked when she said I didn't think it would get this far. It always does. Angela flipped fast. In exchange for a lighter sentence, she gave the feds names, addresses, and bank records for other couples Tom and Spencer had consulted. Turned out she'd helped identify at least three more victims, all women whose spouses were either deployed or in divorce proceedings. Same blueprint, same setup, same pain. I won't lie, there was a part of me that wanted her to rot right alongside Tom and Rick, but in the end, I didn't need vengeance. I needed accountability. And I got it. Tom pled guilty to conspiracy to commit fraud forgery of federal property and identity theft. He was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison, no parole. Spencer got 12, and Angela received 18 months with 5 years of supervised probation. The house fully restored to me, the refinance loan nullified. And as part of Tom's plea deal, he forfeited all claims to my military pension and any shared assets. It wasn't just a win, it was a clean break sealed by law. When Agent Patel called to give me the final update, she said, "You should know, Elena, that because of your case, we were able to stop this scheme from hurting more families. You didn't just protect yourself, you helped us protect others." That was the first time I cried. Not because I was sad, but because for once the system had worked. Not for him, not for her, for me. I didn't get revenge in fire and fury. I got it in paperwork and handcuffs. And sometimes that's the best kind there is. It's strange how quiet peace can be. A year after everything ended, I stood on the porch of my little log cabin in Montana, wrapped in a worn flannel blanket, coffee in hand, watching the morning mist curl through the pine trees like smoke from an old wound finally healing. There's no cell signal out here, no traffic, no whispers behind closed doors. Just me, the trees, the steady sound of a nearby creek and Shadow, my rescue, husky with ice blue eyes, and a sense for people he can trust. I didn't choose this life out of defeat. I chose it because I'd already fought the battle, and I won. Not in the way people imagine victories. There were no parades, no triumphant soundtracks, just legal filings, quiet strategy, and the satisfaction of watching people who underestimated me fall by their own hand. I could have pressed harder, could have pushed to see Tom behind bars longer, could have made Angela's life more difficult, but I didn't. Not because I forgave them, I didn't. Forgiveness isn't something I owed. What I owed to myself was freedom. And freedom, I've learned, doesn't always mean revenge. Sometimes it means walking away with your dignity intact, while the people who tried to break you sit in silence, haunted by what they lost. Tom lost everything that mattered: the house, the money, my trust, my loyalty, my presence. He didn't just lose a wife, he lost a woman who would have walked through hell for him if only he hadn't built it himself. One afternoon, I got a letter forwarded from the Department of Defense. It was handwritten on lined paper from a woman stationed in Fort Worth. Her words were simple, but they landed with weight. "You don't know me, but because of your case, we kept our home. He tried the same thing with us. You stood up when most people would have just walked away. Thank you." I read it twice. Then I pinned it to the fridge. That letter reminded me of something vital. Standing up for yourself isn't just survival, it's a signal to others that they can too. So, if you're going through something: divorce, betrayal, loss, let me tell you this. You're allowed to hurt. You're allowed to be angry, but you're also allowed to fight back, to protect what's yours, and to walk away when the battle's over. Not broken, but reborn. And if this story resonated with you, if you believe in silent strength, justice served cold, and the quiet power of starting over, subscribe to Heavenly Revenge for more true stories where justice doesn't knock, it kicks the damn door down. Because sometimes the best revenge is simply not being where they expect to find you and living well on your terms.